Verrica walked into the court of Emperor Claudius and made him an offer. "Invade Britain," Verrica said. "I will help you. I know the land. I know the tribes. I know who will fight you and who will join you. Come, and I will give you a path straight through." Now, why would Claudius say yes? Because Claudius had a problem of his own. Claudius had come to power by accident. His family had not really wanted him as emperor. He walked with a limp. He sometimes stuttered. His senators did not respect him. What Claudius needed, more than anything else, was a great military victory. Something big enough that no one could laugh at him anymore. Britain was perfect. Julius Caesar had tried to conquer Britain 100 years earlier and failed twice. If Claudius could succeed where Caesar had failed, that would make him a legend. Verrica needed his throne back. Claudius needed a victory. Two desperate men, one plan, and with that handshake, in a Roman palace, far from any battlefield, the fate of Britain was decided. The man in charge of this invasion was General Aulus Plautius, and he was very, very good at his job. He brought 4 legions to Britain. Let's meet them quickly. These were not ordinary soldiers. These were professional fighters, men who had been training and fighting their whole lives. They had faced enemies across the entire Roman world, from Germany to Syria. Britain would not be easy for them, but they came prepared. And here is the most important thing about how Plautius planned this invasion. He did not come to fight everybody. He came with a list, and on that list were the names of British tribes and leaders. Thanks to Verrica's intelligence, he already knew. Not resist Rome. In fact, some of them were waiting to welcome Rome because they saw the same opportunity Verrica had seen. Rome was not just an army. Rome was a new boss. And for men who were tired of being pushed around by the Cotuveloni, a new, powerful boss sounded pretty good. Look at this map. Before a single major battle was fought, much of southeast Britain had already decided to cooperate with Rome. Not because they were cowards, because they were calculating, because they had enemies of their own, and Rome would protect them from those enemies. Plautius did not need to conquer these people. They came to him. Not all Britons surrendered easily to the Romans. Some men such as Caratacus and Togodumnus, both relatives of ancient Britons, absolutely fought bravely and boldly. Caratacus and Togodumnus gathered troops on the banks of the river Medway. They remained there until the Romans showed up. What happened next was the hardest battle of the entire invasion. It lasted 2 full days. 2 days of brutal, bloody fighting on the riverbank. The Romans nearly lost. Plautius devised an ingenious method to execute his plan. He sent a covert unit of his best swimmers, the Batavians, across the river. The objective of these swimmers was not to assault the enemy, warriors, but rather to destroy the horses in harness for the British war chariots. Without their horses, the British chariots were useless. The battle turned. One general from the Roman Empire Hosidius Geta came very close to dying in the battle. He did survive the battle and later received an honor that only a few generals are given, one of Rome's greatest military honors. Consider this for a moment. One of Rome's greatest generals was almost killed at the Medway. This was not just some skirmish, but a true battle with real soldiers on both sides of the line. After the Romans advanced past the Medway River, they continued into the Thames River. There was more fighting, and in those battles, Togodumnus was killed. The younger brother was gone. Caratocus was still alive. He fled to the west and continued to conduct his own hit-and-run style fight with Rome over the next 9 years by hiding in the mountains of Wales. An amazing feat for this man to have survived. But Caratocus was the exception. He was fighting a war that, in the south at least, was already over. In 1960, workers digging a water pipe in a field in West Sussex hit something hard. They called archaeologists. The archaeologists started digging, and they kept digging, and kept digging. What they found was a Roman palace, not a small villa, not a military fort, a full palace with beautiful mosaic floors, formal gardens, imported marble. The grandest Roman building ever found in Britain outside of a major city. Who built this? Who in newly conquered Britain had enough money, enough power, and enough Roman connections to build something like this? His name was Cogidubnus, and he is one of the most fascinating people in this whole story. Cogidubnus was a local leader in the south of Britain. When the Romans landed, he did not fight them. He walked toward them, calmly, confidently, and said, "I am with you." In return, Rome gave him everything. He was made a Roman client king. He was given Roman citizenship, a huge honor for a non-Roman. He was given the title Great King of the Britons. He was given the budget to build Fishburne Palace. An ancient inscription found in nearby Chichester actually names him. It calls him Great King in newly conquered Britain. That is extraordinary. Cogidubnus was not a traitor in his own mind. He was a survivor. He looked at the situation clearly, made a choice, and his people thrived for generations because of it. Caratocus fought for 9 years and became a legend. Cogidubnus cooperated and built himself a palace. History records both, but only one of them shaped what Britain became. When the Romans invaded southern Britain, a local ruler known as Cogidubnus made no effort to resist. Instead, he approached them calmly and confidently, saying to the Romans, "I am your ally and will support you." As a result of this act of allegiance, the Romans rewarded him in kind by granting him control of everything. He became the client king of Rome. He gained Roman citizenship, a rare honor. He was also given the title of the Great King of the Britons, as well as funds, so that he could construct Fishburne Palace. An ancient inscription found in nearby Chichester actually names him. It calls him Great King in newly conquered Britain. That is extraordinary. Cogidubnus did not attempt to defend himself against the Roman invasion of southern Britain. Instead, He met with the Romans peacefully and confidently. He stated to them, "You are my partners, and I will help you." And as a reward for his allegiance, the Romans gave him total control of everything. The Romans made him a king client and a Roman citizen, which was a huge honor to someone who wasn't Roman. He was also able to be called King of the Britons and received a sum of money from the Romans to use to develop the Fishburne Palace. An ancient inscription discovered at Chichester near to Fishburne has his name on it and reads, "King of the Britons," showing just how far the Romans had successfully established themselves in Britain. Claudius brought more elephants to Britain. Just think about that for a moment. Most people in Britain in 43 AD had never seen a horse up close. They certainly had never seen an elephant. And now here were several of them, enormous, armored, trained for war, walking onto British soil behind the Emperor of Rome. This was not a military decision. This was theater. This was Claudius saying, without words, "The world I come from is so large, so powerful, so strange, that you cannot even imagine its edges. Look at what I brought. Now imagine everything else I have." By the time Claudius arrived, the hard fighting was already done. Plautius had spent weeks winning battles. The Cotuvilloni capital, Camulo Duum, modern Colchester, was on the verge of falling. Plautius had sent for Claudius specifically for this moment. The final surrender, the symbolic victory, the moment that would be painted on walls and stamped on coins and celebrated in Rome for decades. Claudius was there for the spectacle, and he was very, very good at spectacle. 11 British kings knelt before Claudius in person. 11 separate kingdoms. 11 separate decisions to stop fighting and accept Roman rule. Now here is what that number tells us. These were not men beaten in battle. If 11 kings had all been militarily defeated, there would have been 11 separate battles. There were not. Most of these men came forward voluntarily because cooperating with Rome was their best option. Some had been rivals of the Cotuvilloni for years. For them, Rome was not an enemy. Rome was the power that had just destroyed the tribe that had been bullying them for a generation. Why would they fight Rome? Rome was helpful. Others had been watching carefully. They saw how coggitiveness was being treated. They heard about Fishburne. They did the maths, and they walked forward. Claudius spent 11 days in Britain. 11 days. His biographer actually notes this, almost like it's a bit embarrassing. The emperor who conquered Britain was on British soil for less than 2 weeks. Then he sailed home, leaving Plautius and his legions to do the actual work of running the new province. But back in Rome, the celebration was enormous. Claudius was given a triumph, Rome's highest military honor, a parade through the streets of the capital. He was given the title Britannicus. His son was given the same name. Coins were minted. A triumphal arch was built, and the story told on those coins, in those celebrations, In the histories written by Roman writers, it was a clean, simple story. Rome came to Britain. Rome fought. Rome won. Claudius the Conqueror. It did not mention Verica. It did not mention Cogitamus in his palace. It did not mention the 11 kings who had walked forward voluntarily. It did not mention any of the people who had opened the door. That is the version of history that survived for 2,000 years, until we started asking the right questions. Here is the honest truth about how power changes hands in history. It almost never happens cleanly. There is never a perfect wall of defenders facing a perfect army of attackers. There are always cracks, and the cracks are always made of people. People with old grudges, people with ambitions, people who decide, for their own very human reasons, that the new power coming in might actually be better than the one they already have. People who go to the enemy camp and say, "I know a way in." Verica was one of those people, but he was not unusual. He was following a pattern as old as human conflict itself. Look at what the Cotuvelloni had done in the years before the invasion. They had expanded so fast, so aggressively, that they had made enemies of almost every tribe around them. Every tribe they absorbed was another group of people with a reason to welcome Rome. Every king they pushed out was another Verica, another man who might sail to an emperor and say, "Come in." The Cotuvelloni did not just fail to stop the Roman invasion. They helped cause it. Their own ambition created the coalition of resentful, displaced, calculating British leaders who opened the door for Rome. The lesson is not complicated. When you make too many enemies, you hand your opponents the most valuable weapon there is, allies on the inside. Now I want to ask you a hard question. Was Verica a traitor? Think carefully before you answer, because here is what we know about what happened to his people. The Atabates, after Verica, made his deal with Rome. They thrived. The south of Britain, under Ramon, became prosperous. New cities, new roads, new trade, Fishburne Palace, security from the Cotuvelloni who had been taking their land for years. If you judge Verica by what happened to his people afterwards, he might have made the right call. But if you judge him by what he did, going to a foreign empire and inviting them to invade his country, then yes, by every definition, he was a traitor to Britain. Both things are true at the same time, and that is the uncomfortable kind of history. That does not fit neatly on a coin or a triumphal arch. Caratacus, by contrast, never stopped fighting. He fled to Wales. He kept raising armies. He kept attacking the Romans for 9 years. Eventually he was captured, betrayed, ironically, by a British queen named Cartamandua, who handed him to Rome in chains. Caratacus was taken to Rome as a prisoner, and there, in front of Claudius and the entire Senate, he gave a speech. He stood up straight, looked the emperor in the eye, and said, "I had horses, warriors, weapons, and wealth. Is it surprising that I was unwilling to give them up? I have been defeated. You want to rule the world. Does it follow that everyone must accept slavery? Claudius was so impressed that he freed Caratacus on the spot. He let him live out his days in Rome as a free man. Caratacus had lost everything, and he still walked away with his dignity and with his life. Rome stayed in Britain for nearly 100 years. For centuries. Think about that. From 43 AD to 410 AD, if you are sitting in Britain right now, the country you are in was shaped fundamentally, permanently, by what happened on that beach at Richborough, the city of London. That's Roman, Londinium, built by Rome. The road network, Roman. Many of Britain's major roads today still follow Roman routes. The very name Britain, from the Roman word Britannia, all of it flows from 43 AD from those 4 legions, from that landing, and from a king who sailed to Rome and knocked on an emperor's door. Verica has no monument at Richborough, no statue, no plaque with his name on it. The site celebrates the Roman conquest. It shows the legions, the fort, the triumphal arch that once stood here. One of the first things Romans built after the landing to announce to anyone arriving by sea, you are now entering Rome. But Verica was here. In spirit, if not in person. His deal, his intelligence, his desperation, it brought this fleet to this shore. He is the ghost of Richborough, the man the history books forgot, the man who changed everything. The Roman invasion of Britain was not just a story about legions and emperors. It was a story about what happens when a society turns on itself. When personal grudges get bigger than the common good. When one kingdom makes so many enemies that those enemies start looking for powerful friends. It was a story about desperate choices. About a king with nothing left to lose. About a general who knew exactly which doors were already open. About local leaders who calculated, coldly, rationally, that survival meant choosing the winning side before the battle even started. It was a very human story, just like every story in history is. The next time someone tells you Rome conquered Britain, remember this. Rome had help, quite a lot of it, from British people, for British reasons. Stop thinking the king won alone. He never does. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more content.